Yes. Yo. Time for malt liquor. And, Professor, cue to lecture.
A lot of people don't stand up straight. A lot of people cheat on their taxes. And apparently, a lot of people walk around making mistakes in spontaneous speech. At least that's what we're told. I remember once having coffee with a very nice person, and she knew I was a linguist. And she said, "Did I say that right?" And she was speaking quite well, but apparently she had made some mistake. It tripped or something. This is a notion that is another byproduct of written language and the fact that writing captures speech on the page in an eternal fashion. And that is that there is this scourge in which we're walking around doing what comes naturally when it comes to language, but that we have to always watch out that we might be making a mistake. This is what's called the prescriptive approach to language. One prescribes how language should be, as opposed to what linguists are committed to, which is descriptive. We describe the way language is. And it's interesting, the idea that spontaneous speech is full of mistakes is not something that you find among speakers of quote-unquote real languages to such an extent. People in the rainforest don't consider themselves to be making mistakes when they speak their language. It's something that becomes a kind of a fetish when there's writing. This lecture is going to give us a new look at what we might call Blackboard grammar. And opinions run high on this subject, but I hope to show you that there's another way of looking at it which is not entirely incoherent. Many of the linguistic habits that we're taught to avoid were only identified as errors by two people and only about 200 years ago. This is a rather new tradition in English. So, for example, in 1762, a bishop named Robert Lowth wrote a book called A Short Introduction to English Grammar, which to a large extent he was kind of making up English grammar, but he was considered an authority, and so he did this. And then Lindley Murray, in 1794, wrote a very similar book based in part on Lowth's, which was called English Grammar. So there was Lowth and there was Murray. And these two little books went through endless reprintings, and they shaped the English language sensibility of many generations. And these guys' influence lives on in us here in our world where nobody wears periwigs anymore, and we have cars and DVDs. And it really traces back to just these two. They were writing in a time when English had recently grown from being a lowly vernacular spoken on a windswept island into a language of worldwide influence. And so Lowth and Murray had the notion that they were preparing English. They were kind of dressing Eliza in My Fair Lady before she goes to the ball. The idea being that English has to have more rules than it apparently did. But they labored under some illusions, which I think that we're beginning to lose in this course, or at least have a different perspective upon, and they couldn't help it. There was no such thing as the scientific study of language when these guys were alive, but unfortunately the result of their illusions lives on in things that we're often told today. Often with a smack on the back of the head,